Hey everybody, welcome back. You will first of all notice that my head is missing. I decided to turn the camera off for these videos. Just let me know if that's a problem for you. I started adding the talking head because a student said that they had difficulty focusing on the lectures if they didn't have something to, if they were just looking at a slide on the screen and listening to my voice. It was difficult to concentrate, and they would find themselves, daydreaming or slipping off or whatever. So I started adding a talking head based on that feedback, but I figured that since I'm not really doing slide lectures for this class, I probably don't even need it, and it's just taking up real estate on the screen that is maybe better used with the actual doing what I'm doing part. So I took it off. Let me know if that's an issue for you. And I'll add them for future lectures. But this I'm recording before the course even begins. This is going to be more bonus content. And we're going to go back again to working on, cheesing our infinite pit, pwn coins, and ammo and stuff like that. Because in the last series of videos, we were able to successfully start Cheat Engine, and we were able to change the variables in our memory addresses. And then we had an issue where even though we had a lot of Pwn coins displayed in our client, it didn't seem to actually affect the number of Pwn coins we had available to us. And then we tried the same tricks in offline mode, and it worked. And what that told me is that we have some kind of server validation going on here where the number of Pwn coins we have in our client doesn't... when a transaction with our NPC occurs, it's actually checking a server variable for the number of Pwn coins we have available for that transaction, which is fine. If we can do it in offline mode, we can probably do it in online mode. But what that means is that we're going to need to figure out how the client is communicating with the server and how to send a signal to update our number of Pwn coins. So essentially, it's not enough to just tell our client that we have more Pwn coins than we actually have. We also need to figure out how we're going to inform the server that the number of Pwn coins we have has been updated, and then it should update on that side as well, which can be trickier. And I in the last series of videos, I said, hey, I guess we'll hold off on this until we get to the later on in the semester. I thought, based only on the description of the events, that we wouldn't really need to worry about server-side exploits for at least a little while. And that might be the case when we start completing our quests, but after poking around in the game files a little bit, I think we're going to have to probably get to it pretty soon. So I decided, hey, let's go ahead and just do some extra content because it sounds like I'm going to need to figure something out here anyway. Hold on a sec. Let me show you what we're doing here. Just a moment. Okay, so if you remember from our video, our introductory video where we were setting up the client, we had a server.ini file. I'm sorry, by the way, if it is extremely cold in my office. It has been extremely cold in my office all week. Like, it is freezing in here, literally. So if you hear me sniffling or my teeth chattering or something, I apologize. It's just extremely cold in here. So yeah, we had a server.ini file that had a couple of entries. One of them was for a master server, and one of them was for a game server. So we know that our client has two connections, one to the master and one to the game. So what we need to do if we're going to communicate with the server is we need to work out how that connection is, how it's set up, and how we might be able to alter the information that's being sent back and forth. So what I'm going to do, first of all, just to show you what we're working with here, is I'm going to do a netstat nabo, and let's do this to, let's just do netstat.text here in our Pwn Adventure 3 directory, and then notepad, and drag this over here. Okay, so these are all of the ports that we have open on my machine right now. I should probably switch to doing this to a virtual machine. I never do any of this kind of stuff on my work machine, both because it's stupid to do stuff like this on your work machine, but also because, you know, there's all kinds of things running on my work machine, like my AV and exploit mitigation and host-based firewall and stuff. It just causes a lot of complications. But whatever, I've already started, so let's just finish this part up at least. Maybe I'll move it all to a VM later. All right, so I do have the client running here in the background. It's actually been running for like days, just sitting here, basically since the last time we were messing with it. So connection to, okay, well, maybe not right now, but I wonder, I'll have to go check on the game server. But anyway, it is running. So love the UI problems here. Anyway, so it is running. So it should, unless of course that connection was closed a long time ago. Okay, here we go. So point of interest 3, Win32 shipping. And what else we got? So yeah, there's no connection to the game server right now. We're gonna have to do that. Let's see if it just timed out or if. Hopefully there's not a problem with the server. I mean, there could be. Okay, no, we're good. I'm just gonna have to deal with this thing here being in the middle. All right, let's do that again then. Since now we definitely have a connection to the. Okay. Okay. We have several. All right, so we have several connections here. We have one here on 3009, and we have one here. This should be 3333. Hold on, let me pull up our server because those are, I thought those are the ports that we're looking for here. But let me pull up our server any so that we can check, because that would also have the ports that we're looking for in it. Server any open with Notepad++. And yeah, so we have, hold on, let me drag it over here so you can see it. That's Stego. What the hell? Oh, there we go. I have so many tabs open in Notepad++. All right, so yeah, in our server any file, we can see it should be connecting on port 333 and port 3000. But I can tell you that game servers will definitely have, or they may not connect on the port that we see here. And the reason for that is because a game server has to have the ability to maintain concurrent connections, obviously with lots and lots of users. So if we try to connect on port 3000 with our game server, port 3000 might already be taken, and so it should instead put us on a port that is our the next available port in whatever block they have designated, which in this case is probably 3009 that we're seeing here. So the way that this is going to work is flip over here. All right, so what we're going to try and do is, let's see, I'll do blue. All right, so then over here, or don't, what? That's not at all what should be happening. Draw. Just pull up paint then. Do it the old-fashioned way. All right, blue. Okay. So over here we have our client. That's on my computer here in the office. And then here we have the server. And that's somewhere up wherever that infrastructure is being hosted. So normally I have two connections going out. One is to the game server, and the other one is to the master server. And the master server is connected on 3333. Game server is 3009. Now, of course, those connections are going to go all the way to the server. Just use the same port number because that will help us to conceptualize. All right, so we have the client, which is both sending and receiving information from our servers. Actually, you know what? Let me do this a little bit differently because this might be a little bit of a misconception. Oh my goodness! I wish that I didn't have to do this in Paint. I could probably just undo. Yeah, let me undo. Keep going. Okay. So 3009. 3009. All right, and actually, technically, we have two servers over here. Okay, so then this one is going to be our master server. And I'm going to use the same port numbers to help us to keep things straight. All right, there we go. So we have two servers, a master and a game server. My client is connecting to both. The servers, they have a connection established back with my client. The client is both sending and receiving information to both of these servers, and each of these servers is both sending and receiving information from both of the, or from my client. Now, if we want to meddle with the information that's being sent between these two people, there are a couple of ways that we may be able to approach it, right? Because this data is coming out and it's branching off here, and it's going back and forth. Now, that means that we could look for some potential places where we might be able to sort of interject and make some changes. One of those, of course, is over here at the client, right? If we can change what's being sent, then that interferes with this communication channel. And at the same time, if we can interfere with what's being received before the client processes it, that may be something we'd be able to do as well. But that would mean that would be pretty complicated because the client and the server. Well, I mean, it's possible, yeah. That might be something that we'd be able to do. But it would be a lot easier to catch the transmission before and after it actually leaves in between, whether that is on my computer where the client is running, whether that is on the servers where they are running. But it would be a lot easier if we could just do a man in the middle, right? If we could just set something up here in between. Oh, hold on, we're doing the other stuff here, so let's do red now. So now if we set something up and instead we have our client connecting to something in between, thinking that it's the game server, then everything the client sends will end up in that host, that malicious host, right? And that means that if the client thinks that that is the server, then it will send everything there. We can then unpack it, we can make changes to it, and then we need to send it on, right? So our client communicates with the man in the middle. Our man in the middle communicates with the servers, pretending to be the client. And in the meantime, we can make whatever changes we want to that data and then send it off. And then after that, it says whatever we want it to say. When the server responds, then we can similarly unpack it there in the middle, change it to whatever we want, and then send it back. The client, because it thinks it has a connection with the server, will trust that information just as if it were coming from our real game server, and will process it as such. So on both ends, we basically have interjected in the middle. The client thinks that we're the server, the servers think that we're the client, and we can just make whatever changes we want and send them both in either direction. So what we're looking at here, this is a man in the middle, but what we're looking to create here in some way is a proxy. That's an R, not a P. All right, so we'll set up a proxy. Now, in order to do this, we had to figure out a little bit about how the client is actually working. And to show you how I arrived at this, let me get Ghidra back open here, and I'll show you what I was poking at here in the meantime. Okay, I got Ghidra open here, and what I want to do is just kind of walk through the steps of how I kind of came to the idea that we're going to need to set up some kind of a proxy here. Because when we broke off last time, we were at a point where we were able to edit those variables, inject into memory our new values, and work just fine in offline mode, but it was clear that there was some kind of server communication, some kind of validation or something that's going on here. So in Ghidra, all I did is I did a quick search through program text for server, and I believe it was a label, but let's just find out. There was quite a few searches, or quite a few results rather. What did I end up doing? So there's server connection. Was this it? No, this wasn't it, because there was actually quite a few that had the same. Okay, I think I remember what it was. I think I ended up actually searching for game server. Yeah, so I found the game server, which had a bunch. So here's our namespace game server connection. Had a bunch of entries here. So it looks like essentially there's a separate function for different things that might occur. I'm sorry, I'm trying to not and ah my way through this, but I don't have like notes prepared or anything. I'm just trying to explain what's going on. So basically what I'm getting at is it looked like there's a different function here for different incidents that may happen in the game to then inform the server that these things have occurred. So for example, on picked up, on equip items, when you equip an item, the server is informed. When your health is updated, when your mana is updated, when a quest starts, and if we continue through here, we'll see that there's pretty much anything really that happens can be separately informed. And then I was looking for there it is, buy item and sell item. So there are different things here, different entries here for buying and selling, but none specifically for currency. So I think the way that they're handling currency is there's probably a check when you buy or sell to get your current number of available Pwn coins, and then there's probably this on picked up event. Where was it? Here's on picked up event is probably also something in here for when currency is picked up, because you can get currency from killing mobs in the game. So what I did is I took a look at this and I was like, well, if there are different functions for these different things, then we can probably see that in the communication between the client and the server, right? So what I'm saying is that the data, when the server is notified that an item wants to be bought, should look different than when an item is sold, and so on and so forth. And I figured that this would be important for us to figure out anyway, because if we're going to be doing things like flying or teleporting or whatever, we're going to need to be able to determine our location and space in the game anyway, which the server is going to keep track of, obviously. So I figured we would get here eventually. We're just a little bit faster than I thought. So what I did is, and we're going to be digging into this a little bit more in a little bit, I think. Honestly, like I said, I have been avoiding spoilers for this, and I haven't done it myself before, so as much as possible, you're kind of seeing me work it out for myself. And if you want to go online and look at other write-ups that have already been done for this, go ahead. There are plenty of them out there. It's been really hard for me to avoid spoilers. But go ahead. I mean, you're going to see, it's going to make me look like an idiot because, you know, there's people out there that are way smarter than me that are just making it look super easy, whereas you're going to see me struggle. But then on the other hand, maybe you're struggling too, and it might help to see me go through the whole process rather than producing a polished video in 30 minutes or less where, you know, I start out knowing nothing and by the end I've got it all sorted out and everything's working great. So where was I? Oh, yeah. So I wanted to see what that looked like, what the communication between the client and the server looked like. So I started up Wireshark, and I trimmed it down to just, this is just TCP port 3009, which it is our still currently connected here on our client. So I just, and this was days ago when I did this. So I just started it up and just took a look to see what was being sent back and forth here between the game server and the client. So let me go ahead and do it again, and we can look at it in real time. So I'm going to make a little bit of room here so we can kind of see it scrolling by as we go. So what we're seeing here, and again, this is just the data that's being sent back and forth. That's all you're seeing in this column. So you can see we have some null bytes being sent back and forth, not null bytes, 0 bytes. And then we have this other longer string, and then there's nothing. These don't have any data being attached to them. Let me quick highlight one of these. This is the data that's being sent. It doesn't look like it means anything in ASCII translation right away. I mean, maybe. But in the game, of course, all I'm doing is just standing here, so I'm not doing anything. So let's keep our eyes on this, though, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some things in the game, and I bet, well, not I bet, I have tested this. If I do things in the game, we're going to see that that string, that data that's being sent, changes. So, and remember, I have a UI issue here where it's still got the menu, so I am in the game. Okay, and I turned off the music because I couldn't take it anymore. All right, so you see how when I move, that string changes, but not all of it. All right, not all of the string changes, just some of it. It still starts out with 6D, and it's 6A, 6D. When I jump, see it changes to 6A. So it's clear if I'm going to stand still here for just a second. So keep an eye on the scroll, 6D, 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 and if I jump, we'll see a 6A come up. Or not. I thought I was onto something. Maybe it's moving and jumping. That's 6A. No? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there is a 6A. So it is apparently when you jump, it's one string. When you move, it's different. And when you're apparently moving and jumping, it's a completely different string because, well, what I'm getting at is that these strings here, this data that's being sent, is going to have some significance to the server. I don't know what that is yet, but what I'm seeing here is what the client is sending to the server, and the server must make sense of it somehow, which I may be able to figure out from looking at the functions here in the background, or we may be able to look at just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just encoded. I don't know yet, but let's talk to our NPC here and see if we can trigger see what happens when we buy something. So let's buy a pistol ammo for 1 pwn coin. Okay, there's that 2-4 blah blah blah. It scrolled by too fast, I couldn't see the rest of it, but there was a different string that was sent. Now let's sell a sniper ammo. I didn't see anything there, so what I'm guessing is that there's nothing. The client must have sent something, but maybe it just wasn't a different enough string that I couldn't see with my naked eye as I was scrolling by. But I'm recording this stream here, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at it later. So what happens if I shoot? Yeah, I'm seeing a shorter string comes up when I shoot. Oh, there's actually... Oh, the shorter strings are probably my mana regenerating. If I fire a bunch off here... Yeah, those shorter strings when you see them fly by, that's my mana updating. That's very useful. Because if I can figure out... Does the value change? Can't tell. I'll have to stop this and figure it out. Here, let's stop Wireshark here for a second. Let's take a look here. I want to scroll. All right, there's one of them. Yes, they are changing because there's 606163, 66164. What is 66164? Is that anything in nothing asking. But it does, yes, it is going up. So there's 62, 63, 64, 61, 60. This is probably my last shot, my last fireball that I threw. Do I see that come up somewhere else? No, I'm seeing a couple of other things though. So what I'm getting at here with all of this, and I'll wrap this up so that we can move on to the next part of this whole thing, is this is how I came to the conclusion that we needed a proxy, because if the client is sending the server this information, this data, if we can either, number one, figure out what this means, change it, and then send that packet to the server instead, the server should interpret it just fine and execute whatever it thinks the client is telling it. So we can basically say, oh, I've picked up a coin, and then we can do that a million times, right? And then the server will think we picked up a million coins. And then we shouldn't need to do anything to the client, because once the server is updated, it should sync with the client. Well, hopefully, I guess we'll see. We might need to do both. So at the same time, this is going to be helpful, because if these 6D blah, 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 if these are indeed changing when we move, then if we can figure out maybe the location, what each of these means, we could teleport or fly or something like that, perhaps. If I can figure out the transaction for buying, right? If there's a different string for a successful transaction or an unsuccessful transaction, then I can essentially make all of the items free, or tell the server that we had a successful transaction when we didn't, maybe even outside of the NPC dialogue, so I can just give myself items is what I'm getting at. So this is the first step, right? We know that data is being sent to the server, and we know that probably if we can manipulate this data, we can get the server to do what we want it to do, because it'll think it's coming from the client. And that means that we need to have a proxy. We need to have some way, somewhere the client to send this information, where we can alter it and then send it off to the server, where the server can reply. We can alter it if necessary and get it back to the client. And it's that part in the middle that we need to be able to control. So we need a proxy. So how are we going to go about this? I had a couple of ideas. I'm not entirely sure just yet. We can, of course, write our own. What I'm going to do in this case probably is go ahead and start up probably a Linux VM, just because it'll be much easier to work in Linux in this case. But I also considered, if we're going to use Windows, maybe we could do something with Squid. Of course, if we're going to use Linux, we could also use Squid. So I might use Squid or something like Squid, because it might be easier for you guys. Or we might just go ahead and write our own. I considered also writing something in PowerShell, but then I realized that it's probably not that easy to do in PowerShell. There's probably modules out there or something, but honestly, if we're going to use PowerShell, we're better off using probably using Python or something. So either we'll use something like Squid or Squid itself, or we'll write our own. I haven't decided yet. So I'm going to take some time, do a little research, see how much work it would be to set this up with Squid or something, see if there's any Squid alternatives out there that might be easier. And if I don't get anything in a couple of hours, then I'll probably just go ahead and we'll just write it ourselves in Python, because it's not going to be hard. This might be we might be able to do this in I don't know, 100 lines or less. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. So yeah, I'm gonna go and figure that out, and I'll either start the next part. I'll tell you, right now as I'm recording this, it's 9 a.m. on a Friday, and it is so cold in my office. If I don't get to recording this until the next part until next Monday or something, it's because I couldn't take the cold in my office anymore, and I had to leave for a little while. It is freezing in here, literally freezing. It's got to be like 30 degrees or 31 degrees in my office right now. I don't know why it's so cold, but it is. My hands I can't type because I already type badly. So, all right, I'm done rambling. Let's move on to the next part after I do a little bit of research here.